Monday Night Football, we got the Rams and the 49ers. Hoping this game can come close to the game tonight. The game tonight, the showdowns at least, this is my favorite type of showdowns when we have a shootout. So hoping for some points scored in this one. But yeah, guys, if you're a first-time viewer, welcome to my channel. My name is DK, and I do make content for Draftkings and for Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the sponsor of today's video. If you're a first-time user, make sure to use the code DKDFS for a 100% match up to $100. So basically, if you deposit using my code, $100, that's a free $100 to play with on the site. So again, if you're a new user, take advantage of that. Prize Picks, again, it's a player prop site. Ton of different sports. You can mix and match. So yeah, give it a try, guys. And if you guys are looking for that more in-depth content for DFS or Prize Picks, again, you can check out my Patreon linked down below. Ton of different packages. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Twitter or in the YouTube comment section. But all right, so let's recap the showdown lineup tonight for myself. So came close in tournaments, so it was looking really good to start. But then Mike Evans, 2 touchdowns. Handed off to Fournette at the 1. We're really going to do a fade to Mike Evans. Give it to Fournette. I mean, come on, right? But yeah, that basically is the reason that I fell out of, or did not cash in tournaments was the Bucs decided to throw. When was that? I forget what point it was in the game, but they had like 1st and goal at the 1, and they did a fader out to Mike Evans, which is super tilting because obviously Mike Evans is popular. But what my stand that I talked about on Patreon was I was all over Rashad White taking a stance because we saw on Twitter that Tampa Bay wanted to limit Fournette. Now, that didn't get me off Fournette, right? Because Fournette was still a guy that was involved in the passing game. I thought it was going to be like a 70-30-ish split. And with there being so many guys at the top that I wanted, I was just willing to punt with Rashad White. And it worked out in a big, big way with Rashad White going for 15 fantasy points at low ownership. And Fournette was solid. Wish he would have ran in, or wish they ran the ball at the 1 with him instead of throwing it to Evans. And then I went Kelsey, Mahomes. Again, Kelsey started the game really, really hot. Kind of cooled off a little bit down the stretch. Juju, just fine. Wasn't great. Needed a bit more from him. And then Ryan suck up. So that was my showdown lineup. Main slate we'll go over in the next main slate video. But I had a great main slate. It was all over the Charger stack. Hawkinson. Yeah, went very well. Romeo Doubs as well. And Romeo Doubs dropped a touchdown too that probably cost me another like $300-400. But yeah, if you guys are curious for a main slate lineup, I did tweet it out, and then we'll recap it in the next main slate video. All right, let's quickly go over the Vegas odds for this one. It's a 42.5 over under. Both defenses relatively solid, with the 49ers being 1.5 point favorites. I mentioned how I didn't really get on Patreon stream. I didn't get why Kansas City was dogs. That line didn't make sense to me. I don't really understand why the Rams are underdogs in this spot. I think the Rams are the better team. So let's start off with the Rams, who are on the road. And for Showdown Slate, it's going to be very simple for the Rams because they basically run the same guys out there the entire game. They don't mix in anyone else. So there's not going to be many guys to choose from here for the Rams. And it's kind of similar for the 49ers too. So there's almost no value on this slate. But yeah, at the top, I mean, yeah, Cooper Kupp's great at football. Phenomenal play. There you go. Right. There's no point in me, spending more than 20 seconds talking about Cooper Kupp. He's a phenomenal play. Can you get away with fading him? I mean, his floor is probably close to 20 fancy points. It's a very, very scary fade, especially on a showdown slate. Matt Stafford's at 10-6, so I like him a decent amount. I know the 49ers defense is solid, but I do give the edge to Stafford over Jimmy G. I just think better offense will outplay better defense, and that's kind of what happened tonight with the Chiefs absolutely destroying the Bucs defense. So I do like Stafford a bit more here than Jimmy G, who we'll talk about. The two running backs, it's basically going to be a split with Akers and Darrell Henderson. Now, Akers did out-touch Darrell Henderson last game, and then the snap counts were identical. So you had 24 snaps for Akers, 24 snaps for Henderson. But here's the thing. Cam Akers was only in on 4 passing plays. Darrell Henderson was in on 15 passing plays. What it's looking like is it's looking like Cam Akers is going to be the early down back. Right? He had 15 carries week 2, 12 carries week 3. Rather than Darrell Henderson be more the third down back, he'll still get some carries, but only 4 carries on the ground against Arizona. So that's how I think the running back situation is going to work out here for the Rams. So kind of depends on how you think the game goes. If you think the Rams fall behind early, you should look to Henderson. If you think the Rams are playing from ahead, I think you want to look to Cam Akers. And this is another one where it's just like, I just don't know what to do with this guy, right? Everyone was like, oh yeah, it was just bad quarterback play. Chicago, he was banged up. Everyone was so excited. Me too. Like I was excited about Allen Robinson this year, and he's just not great. He really just hasn't. So 6.2K. I mean, the positive is he's going to play the entire game, right? So he played, where's Allen Robinson? 44 of the 48 snaps, so almost 100% of the snaps. He's been quiet so far. I still think he's got a little bit of juice left in the tank, though. I don't think he's completely washed. So still have some interest in Allen Robinson in the mid-range. I think he's a relatively safe play. And I mentioned how there's not a lot of value options. Could be a slate where you live more in the mid-range just because there's like very little value. Another guy who I've been all over this year is Tyler Higby. He's done very, very solid. 11 targets, 9 targets, only 4 targets there against Arizona, but Rams got off to a big lead early. Didn't really have to throw the ball a ton down the stretch. Another positive here with Higby is he's basically going to play the entire game. Played 45 of the 48 snaps. So I think Higby's a very good value in both formats. Skoronek's fine too. He is the wide receiver 3, and he's basically playing majority of the game too. He played 41 of the 48 snaps. So he's the clear wide receiver 3 behind Kupp and Robinson, but another cheap part of this passing attack, and he'll be out there like the majority of the game. So there's some solid value here for the Rams. At Robinson, Higby, Skoronek, and just because they're going to have a lot of opportunities, right? If the 49ers sell out to try to stop Cooper Kupp, then yeah, some of these cheaper Rams could definitely be in play. Matt Gay, 3.8. Again, kickers are solid values. There's basically no one below him that I'm even considering. The Rams defense, I guess, they're viable. Defense will probably be a bit overowned on both sides just because it's a lower total game. If that is the case, my take on defense is if they're going to get, 20+% ownership, I'm just not going to go there. And then that's really it. I know Brandon Powell had 3 catches on 3 targets last week, but be very, very careful here. Very. Brandon Powell only played 6 snaps. 3 catches on 6 snaps. I don't think that's going to continue. 3K. Don't love it. Kendall Blanton had 1 catch and 1 target. He played 5 snaps. Jacob Harris only played on special teams. And then Tutu Atwell played 3 snaps. So basically, Powell and Atwell, you can take a dart in one of those guys in tournaments, but they're not going to play a ton unless something happens to one of the Rams receivers in front of them. And then on the San Francisco side, so Deebo Samuel, very safe play in both formats at the top. Is going to get some looks through the air, is going to get some carries on the ground. 49ers are relatively thin in the backfield, so you will get some Deebo Samuel carries. And yeah, he's going to play majority of the game as well, but 44 of the 56 snaps, again, involved in the passing game and in the running game. Good play in both formats. Jimmy G is at 10K. Kind of just indifferent on him. We know what Jimmy G is, more of a game manager at this point of his career. So, yeah, I'm fine with him. I do prefer Stafford, but I think you could play both quarterbacks in the slate if you want to. It's just where you're going to get value, right? Or if you do play both quarterbacks, maybe you have to go a little bit more balanced below that. So Jeff Olson Jr., the 49ers through 2 weeks were basically utilizing 2 running backs and basically split. The last game, though, against Denver was not the case. They changed it up. You saw 41 of the 56 snaps for Jeff Wilson, only 5 for the backup Jordan Mason, and Juszczyk was out there a decent amount too as their fullback. So if we're going to get similar snaps for Jeff Wilson, I think he's a pretty good option in the mid-range, right? If he's going to play a majority of the game, he's a guy that can catch passes. I'm fine playing him. Brandon Ayuk is the wide receiver 2, but he's at 8 targets in back-to-back weeks. He's still got a pretty high ceiling. I would say a bit of a lower floor than Deebo Samuel, but he's also coming in at, like $3,000 cheaper. And again, he has big play upside. He played 50 of the 56 snaps, so he technically outsnapped Deebo Samuel last game. And then I think this is a misprice, too, on George Kittle. I thought, the price point, when I first looked at the price point on DraftKings, I figured, oh, okay, George Kittle must have been limited that last game. No, he played 51 of the 56 snaps. So 6.6K for Kittle. Yeah, that looks good as well in the mid-range. So as I mentioned a couple times now, with there being very little value, the mid-range is where you might have to live for building out your lineup. Below that, there's not a lot of options. So the 49ers defense is in play. Here's the thing, right? They're probably going to be overowned. I know that they're a really solid defense. Comes down to ownership. My guess is they'll be in that 20 to 30% range. If that's the case, I'm just going to fade. Right? I'm not going to play a chalky defense. Robbie Gould's at 4K. Same thing. Kickers, decent values. There's very, very little guys below the kickers that are viable on this slate. There's probably one guy that I feel the best about, and that would be Juwan Jennings, 2K. Now, he hasn't done a ton, but 6, 2, and 3 targets does intrigue me on a slate where there's basically no value. There's literally like no value on the slate. I'm not saying Juwan Jennings is a smash play, but he played 26 of the 56 snaps. I would assume he's going to probably play, again, a third of the game, maybe up to 40% of the snaps. I guess it depends on how the game flows. If the 49ers fall behind, he could play a bit more. If they're playing from ahead, maybe a bit less. But I think he's one of the better values in the slate, right? Just because there's like no one else that's viable. Ray McCloud is the wide receiver 4 behind Juwan Jennings. He only played on 10 snaps, so I'm going to prefer Jennings, who is cheaper and playing more. But if you wanted to look to Ray McCloud as a dart throw in tournaments, you could, who's had 2, 2, and 1 targets through 3 games. I'll also mention Jordan Mason. My take in last showdown slate, I thought he was going to play a lot more. I thought it was going to be a somewhat even split with Wilson. I was wrong in that. He barely played. But maybe they just wanted to ease him in it. I would think you see a couple more touches here for Jordan Mason. So at 1.2K, I think you can take that stand on the showdown slate of saying, all right, I think Jordan Mason's going to be much more involved in this game. Like that's a viable stance you can take on the showdown. So a little bit interested in Jordan Mason as well. Obviously, the snaps last game were concerning, but I think there's a chance they could go up. And then Kyle Juszczyk is actually viable. He played a lot last game. He does run routes. He's a good pass catcher for a fullback. $1,000, I'm okay with it because there's literally like nothing else. Ross Dwelley is the backup tight, or him and Charlie Warner are the backup tight ends. Warner played 8 snaps. Dwelley played 4. Really just dart throws there. And the last guy I'll even mention, he only played on special teams with Marlon Mack. He is the running back 3. Maybe there's a chance he gets a carry or 2, but I think I would rather take the shot on rookie Jordan Mason. So yeah, guys, I know it's a little bit of a shorter video, but that's going to wrap it up because there's not many options that are viable on both teams. So it's going to be a interesting showdown slate. Hopefully it's higher scoring than the Vegas total says. Hopefully it's somewhat of a game like we saw tonight. Again, those are my favorite type of showdowns. But yeah, that'll do it for the video. Thanks again for watching, guys. Just make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoy. And keep an eye out for the next video.